Okay, welcome back. This chapter is all about using Microsoft Word to do word processing, to create documents that you would either print or email and things of that nature. Okay, so to start up, obviously the first thing we have to do is to launch Microsoft Word. Now, if you remember how this works, I'm going to go down to my Start menu here, click on the Pearl, click on All Programs, go to Microsoft Office, find Microsoft Word, and just click. Now remember now, since I'm inside this menu, I'm not double clicking these guys, I'm just single clicking them. Cool? So it launches Microsoft Word. And so Microsoft Word just fires up, and I'm staring at a blank document. I do have this flashing cursor that tells me that's where the text is going to be if I start typing now. Okay? And so I'm going to do that. So my mouse cursor is one of the cursors that are on the screen. Then I have a text cursor. I know, isn't that kind of weird? I have two. Notice how if I move the mouse, I get an arrow, like up here, it's an arrow now, but as soon as I move it into the document, it turns into this little I-beam thing. I call it an I-beam because perhaps I'm an engineer and it looks like an I-beam. Okay, so two cursors. So I'm just going to move this one out of the way so there's no confusion. And I'm just going to start typing. So, Mary had a little lamb. Now, if I was to hit the return key or the enter key, depending on what it says on your keyboard, it's going to assume that I'm done with that and to create a new paragraph. So if I do that, it's going to not go to the line immediately below. It's going to skip a line because it assumes it's a paragraph. So Mary had a little lamb. I'm going to type some text here. So anyway, is fleece was white as snow, and everywhere that Mary went, the lamb was sure to go. It followed her to, and see what happened here when I got to the end of the line, it automatically wrapped around. Now I didn't wrap around like it did on the first one, because the first one I deliberately stopped that paragraph and it said, you hit the return key, so I assume that you meant to create a new paragraph. Here I didn't hit the return at all, so it just keeps on going. Okay, that's probably good enough. Now you may notice that there's a red squiggly. That's what I call a little wavy line. I'm going to zoom in so you can see that a little bit better. So it's some text, but it has a red wavy line underneath it, and that basically means something's wrong. And to find out what's wrong is I put my cursor, the mouse cursor this time, anywhere inside that word and do a right click, so on the right mouse button. I click and it's going to come up with a little context menu, and basically what it's saying is the grammar is wrong, the spelling is wrong, the punctuation is wrong. Something's wrong with this, and it's giving you a list of suggestions. Well, oddly enough, the first one is the one that I want. I wanted to capitalize Mary. So I just have to go down to here and click, and doink, it automatically changed to my document. Woohoo! And now I don't have any red squiggly lines anymore. Cool? Okay. Now let's talk about all the things that you can do to text. So if I want to change some text, I basically have to highlight the text I want to change. I could highlight an entire line like this. Now what I'm doing is I'm holding down I'm clicking somewhere in the document, and then after I've clicked, I hold the normal left mouse button down and I drag it across and then let go when I get to where I want to go. Now let's say, for example, I wanted everywhere, but I wanted to stop at the E. I mean, I don't want this entire word, I want to stop right there. Okay, so it's kind of tough to make it stop exactly where you want sometimes. This takes a little bit of skill to be able to get it exactly right. So now that I have some text highlighted, it doesn't really matter what text it is, I can go in there and do some things. Well, look right here. There's a whole thing under font. And the first one says to make the select text bold. Let's do that. Ooh, Cool? The next one says make it italics. Ooh. The next one says underline. Cool. The next one is strike through. You normally don't use that in a Word document, but heck, it's there. And there's superscript and subscript and all sorts of funky things. How about color? So now this looks kind of strange because it's still highlighted. So I'm just going to click somewhere outside to see what it's going to look like. And now the text is in red. So I'm just going to go through and just decorate this thing. So I'm going to take the word fleece and make it in bold. I'm going to take white and make it in italics. Take snow, make it in underline. And then when I get to Mary, I'm going to do them all. I'm going to make it bold, italics, underline, and red. Okay, you see how I did that? I just had it all selected, and then I just clicked each one of the buttons. I clicked the bold, right on down the line to get all the things that I wanted. Cool, huh? Now, occasionally, if you're working on a document, for example, if you're doing a draft and you want to send it to someone, you know how you would take a piece of paper and use one of those yellow highlighters and you'd mark it up? Well, they basically have a yellow highlighter feature, okay? And this is typically not designed for a finished document that you're going to, send to the bank or something, because this will print as yellow. And so this time, once again, I just select the text that I want and hit this little guy, and now I've got, yellow highlighter. Cool. Now you might ask, well, wait a minute. How do I make it not highlighted? I mean, I've made it highlighted. How do I undo that? Well, to undo that, basically you just highlight it a second time, and this has a really, 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 really tiny down arrow. See the little down arrow? If you click on the down arrow, it's going to ask you what color highlighting you want, and so you can see as I'm hovering over it, it's changing. And one of them is no color, which is essentially put it back to the way it was. Cool? Now, let's do the same thing here. If I didn't want this to be bold anymore, I just turn the bold off. If I didn't want this to be italics, I just turn the italics off. If I didn't want this to be underline, now immediately you gotta have to catch this exactly right. Underline, doink. And I didn't want this to be red anymore. Now, once again, these are kind of obvious. They're kind of on or off. These have options. So the text highlighting color has an option, and these guys, the font color, have a lot of options. So I can't just turn them on and off. So here I have to hit that little down arrow again, and I can pick. Now I can just pick black, but it actually makes more sense to pick automatic. And automatic just means pick the same color as the text for the rest of the document. So let's say, for example, you had the entire document was in green, and you accidentally changed something to red and you want to put it back. This basically means go back to normal, whatever normal might be. So rather than specify a color, it actually makes more sense to just tell it to go to automatic. And I have to, really to be able to see what's going on, I actually have to move the cursor a little bit away so I can see it all. Okay, so now I have Mary, which has all these guys, right? So I'm going to light this guy up one more time, and you can see what is currently selected. It's bold has been selected, italics, underline, and I really can't tell that the red's been selected. So I'm just going to go through and just turn that one off, turn that one off, turn that one off, and then go here and tell it automatic. And ta-da! So what we've done is we've gone through and we've decorated text. We've changed the style, bold, italics, underline, and then we've also changed the text color. Okay, so text color is kind of sort of cool, but what if I just didn't like the size of the text? So for example, Mary had a little lamb. I want that to be bigger. Now, so once again, it's the same thing. I put the mouse cursor and I drag it over the parts that I want. And then I tell it what size. Now, if I knew precisely what size it is, I could use this little down arrow and pick a number. But that's only if you're kind of sort of familiar with it. Because most of the time when you want it bigger, you just want it a little bit bigger. And you don't really care what the numeric value is. I mean, is it 12? Is it 42? You don't care, right? So these two little buttons mean make it bigger or make it smaller. Okay, so you just hit this as many times as you like. One hit, you go, nah, I want a little bit more. So you just keep hitting it, keep hitting it, keep hitting it until you get it the size that you want. Cool? Same thing. I can make it shrink now, and I can bring it down to size, and I can make this thing really tiny so you can't even see it. Cool? Now, it is telling you what the number is over here. So for some reason, if you were really anal about it and wanted to make it 42, well, then you could either click it until you got to 42, or you could just type in the number you want. I want it at 42, by gosh. So 42 it is. Okay. So now that I've made my text larger, I'm kind of sort of okay here. But let's say this was like the title for this poem. So the poem has a title, and then the rest of the poem goes underneath. So let's tweak this a little bit. I'm going to put this halfway back to a decent size. How about, I don't know, that big? And since I'm going to make this first line the title, I'm also going to make it bold, so it's bigger and bolder. That looks pretty cool to me. But you know, the title of a document is probably, you know, centered on the page somehow. And yeah, you could actually put the cursor here and hit the space bar. Okay, you could, but don't do that. In fact, if you do that, I'm going to take points off, because that ain't the way to do it. So I'm going to erase those guys. The better way of doing it is having the word processing package do this for you. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm just going to light up this text just the way we've always been lighting up text. And there's a little section over here called paragraph. And the paragraph is telling me that it's currently left aligned, which is normal, right? It's lined up against the left margin. Well, the next one over says center. Now, if I was to light up both of these and hit center, it's not exactly going to do what you'd expect. I mean, it's like, ugh. By the way, this is the undo button up here. Okay? So if I click on that, it puts everything back. So I'm just going to select this one line and center just the one line. Okay, now all the rest of the text is being left alone. Cool. Okay, so even though this is the title of the poem, it's also the first line in the poem. And I don't particularly like copying. I mean, I don't like typing that much. So I want to do is I want to copy and paste that text into the first paragraph, because it's actually, you know, the title, and it appears in the text as well. Okay. Once again, we're going to use the cursor. We're going to light this guy up. Okay. And I'm going to go over here to see where I have this clipboard section. And one of the things is cut. Ooh, I'm not sure I want to cut. The next one says copy, and then there's paste. Well, paste isn't going to work yet because the machine knows you haven't copied anything. So cut would make it go away. Well, that's not what I wanted. I wanted to leave it where it was and then just copy it. So I'm just going to hit undo. So I'm going to do this little guy here for copy. So copy. And then I'm going to move the cursor where I want this guy. And I'm going to now see how the button has lit up. Meaning, yes, you can do a paste here. So I'm going to do a paste. And you go, well, you know, that's not exactly what I had in mind. I mean, yeah, it did exactly what I told it to do, but that's not what I meant. So I'm going to undo that. What I want to do is I want to paste just the text. I want you to ignore the fact that we made it larger. I want you to ignore the fact that we made it bold. I want you to ignore the fact that we've centered it. I want you to ignore everything except for the text. So once again, there's a cool little down arrow here. And the down arrow basically has other options. The first one, if I hover, says keep the source formatting. That's the default. That is not what I want. The next one says merge, and see how it shows what it's going to look like? That's not bad. What it's trying to do is trying to combine the two styles together. And then the last one is, look, just give me the text, which is exactly what I wanted. So watch. Hover, hover, hover. Okay, this is a good place to stop for the 15-minute mark. We'll pick this thing up again in just a few.